A report is out into the August 2022 crash of a Toronto Island ferry that left 20 people hurt. Chris Glover joins us now with more on this. And Chris, what is the Transportation Safety Board saying now about that crash?
Well, they said that they found a lot of deficiencies, particularly around passenger safety and evacuation management. For example, they said if there had been a real emergency, there would not have been enough life jackets on board for children, and there wasn't enough crew to have managed that sort of emergency. So certainly very concerning details coming out of this report. But let's set the scene for you and describe what happened here at this ferry terminal just a couple of years ago. It was a Saturday afternoon, just before 5 p.m. Approximately 910 people were on board. It was quite a busy day, and the ferry was running behind schedule as well. It was returning from Center Island, and it collided with the dock. As you mentioned, Dwight, about 20 people were injured, 6 of them seriously enough that they had to go to hospital, and 1 person did suffer serious injuries. Now, the Transportation Safety Board investigators would have analyzed a bunch of security footage from that day, and they also interviewed the crew as well. And they noted, possibly because of the fact that the ferry was running behind schedule, that there were operational pressures on the people who were manning the crew, and they found that it was going too fast. The ferry was going significantly faster than it had on its trips earlier that day. It was going at 5 knots, or about 9 kilometers an hour, instead of 3 knots or 5 kilometers an hour. That's the speed it had been going earlier on that day. And the other very significant part of this is that they found that only 1 of 2 propellers was working, and that meant that the ferry didn't have enough force to actually stop it before it collided with the dock. And the person who was operating the ferry said that they did try to engage both propellers, but it didn't work, and they tried to later replicate that error, but they were not able to. Investigators were not able to, so therefore there was no evidence of any sort of equipment malfunction, and they can't say if there was in fact a problem. They also didn't know how many people exactly were on board. They were using that little ticker and just estimating, and so therefore they didn't know if there were enough life jackets. Here's the TSB chair, Kathy Fox, talking about how big of a problem that was.
At the time of the occurrence, the Sam McBride carried 183 child-sized life jackets. The investigation found that on some voyages, there were many more children on board than the number of child-sized life jackets. Estimating isn't good enough. If there's no method to accurately count the passengers as they board a vessel, there's a risk that not all passengers will be accounted for in an emergency.
And there were also only 6 crew members on board. Transport Canada passed a rule in 2009 that there had to be 13, but the City of Toronto had appealed that, and so they were operating at the time with 6. Now, as of today, they're supposed to be operating back up with 13 because the city did lose that appeal, but still only 6 on that ship that day, and none of them had been trained in passenger safety management training, something again that the TSB said was very significant. We talked to some passengers here running past them all of these issues that had been uncovered here, and here's how one passenger reacted to the news today.
I think I'd still use it. I think maybe that was a one-time, lapse, I hope, but I don't think it would deter me from taking it in the future because I've never personally had any issues, and it's a one-time, which personally from a media perspective, I don't even recall the incident.
Yeah, and I thought that was an important clip, Dwight, for everybody to hear, because it is important to put this into context. There are so many trips that the ferries here operate each and every day, and so she was saying so many of them go safely. So now there are 3 recommendations that the Transportation Safety Board has put out. 2 of them are around passenger safety and putting in plans for evacuation management, and they also said that the ferry operators need to do a better job of keeping accurate counts of how many people are on the ferry. Dwight?
It is a busy ferry, and we thank you for this update. Chris Glover down at the waterfront.